Welcome to Aunty K's, your favorite radical queer indigenous auntie, bringing you tarot every day. Hi folks, so today I thought I'd talk about the decks that were on my table this week and what I'm switching them out for, because I did decide to do a big switchover. So we're going to talk about these decks, which were Fortune Queens, the Tarot of Life, the Sabarabito, the Femina, the Curious Cats. Oh, one of them's missing. Where did it? Oh, it's mixed in here. The Femina Tarot, a Syllaba Oracle, the Curious Cats Club deck, and the maybe Lenormand. And I am going to switch these out and refill this container here, which is my work container. So we're going to talk about these decks and what's going on with them. So first up, the Femina Tarot, which is a Marseille Majors only deck that I just got. And this deck sort of inspired this video because I did an unboxing and you got my hot take of it. And if you watched that, you'll know that I was excited to have this Marseille with all this brown skin in it, but I was really confused by the images. The faces, you know, largely didn't match the skin tone. And with the help of Havana from Sparkle Divine Tarot, I found the artist who, you know, was a white artist who gushes over traveling to Asia and Asian people. And I was like, oh, this deck is Orientalism. That's what's going on with this art. And so, well, you know, for the most part, you know, this deck was what I was looking for. This small aspect of the creator's white supremacy that leaked into their art, probably unknowing to them, kept irritating me, and especially once I understood why. And I attempted to read with it for clients twice, and it was difficult because my brain wanted to rant about the art on a side tangent, and that wasn't useful. So I am switching this out, and this isn't just going into my stack of decks that I use. This is going into purgatory to be given away, or sometimes when I do readings in public, I have decks that I'm not using that folks can buy for cheap, and it's going into there. Like, actually, it is going into there. I'd like to recoup my money on that. And so to replace that on my table, I took out the majors from La Tarot Archetypal, and this will be the majors that I use at my workstation, working on the hotlines. I use majors only decks for past life readings, and I find them really useful for this. And as I made this choice, I was like, oh, you know what? This actually like fits, like this could be seasonal. Because I was thinking I don't have like something seasonal for like October and spooky season and all the fall leaves. And I was like, you know what? This deck works for that. It's really abstract. And when I switch it out, I'll let you know my thoughts on reading it. But I have read with this deck before. I find it really makes me, you know, delve in and think hard. Yet I find like, you know, that I have used this for past life readings before in this manner. And I found it really good at that. Having people in it, but abstractly worked really well for past life readings. And I think the images are going to work well for the October season, and the colors of the backs as well. So that is going to be my majors only deck in my workstation. I did have this Sibylla Oracle on my table, and it's gonna stay on my table for today. It's a mass market version. I don't remember who it's by, but it's easily findable. One of a few mass market options out there. I think it's the Lo Scarabeo, which would make sense because we see the words in 4 languages here. I find this deck is really feelings based, and I put it on my table because I was like, oh, you know, I think there's a lot of feelings based stuff going on. So I put it on during the Mercury retrograde. We're out of it now, but I think I'm keeping it on my table. Its yellowy color is autumnal, and so I am going to keep that there. I also had the Maybe Lenormand on my table. So I have found that these keys with these people in them is really useful in doing a fortune style Lenormand-ish readings that I do. And so a couple weeks ago, I thought instead of having both the Morris Fortune and maybe Lenormand, I'm going to have just the one and see how much I rely on these images of the people. And I found I use them a lot in a reading when they're present, which is a good thing to note for if I make another deck of this style. But they're all white. So I went searching, and I almost got Grandma Baby's Black Gold Lenormand, but with shipping up here to Canada, in exchange, it was going to cost me like $100 for a Lenormand deck. So then I kept looking, and I found the Rana George Lenormand, and it's a typically sized Lenormand, whereas this is 52 cards. And so, but I've ordered it. I'm really excited about it. It arrives today, and it is going to replace the Maybe Lenormand on my work shelf when it arrives today. The Curious Cats Club, which is a 52 card cartomancy deck, 54 card because the Jokers are in it and serve a purpose. So I'm not usually an animal deck person, although sometime over the weekend I am getting another one for review. But this really did work for me. I did quite enjoy it. It wasn't a deck I pulled out all the time, but there were certainly times where it really worked. It worked well when somebody understood what their relationship to their person of interest was, and they wanted are they interested in me, but like, what is going on? What do I need to know about us? What can I improve about our relationship or understand about our relationship? And this deck was pretty useful, and I really enjoyed it. But in keeping with the theme, I've decided I definitely can create here in my work table selection. I am trading it out this week for Demor's Fortunes, which I think just has that seasonal feel better in color. This is a deck I created myself. It is based on the G-Witch Oracle, and I wanted a deck like that it wasn't offensive. My oldest daughter is Romani on her dad's side, and I wanted clear images and words, and I wanted to bring the words a bit into this century. And I do find this deck really easy to work with, although I now know that I do like having people images where in the court clubs, in the court cards. And so at some point I'll probably make another deck of this style. And I think I will do that. I mean, there are people on some of the cards for sure. And I do find that helpful in a reading. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that. And this is going back into my work table, and I'm pretty excited about it. And the Reina George is a regular Lenormand with just a few extra cards. So having a 52 card option alongside it is going to be helpful, I think. So I had the Tarot of Life on my work table. I find this deck is really easy to work with. It is also very emotion based in the expression of the people's faces and bodies. And I find that pretty useful. I've been using the tarot decks in 9-card spreads primarily, or for timing. This deck has read really well. The images are really clear. And I find that useful. And other times I like having like everything really filled in. But I quite like this deck. I think it expresses things in interesting ways, like her, you know. It's a diverse deck that is a requirement for something to be lasting on my table. Oh, kitty moment. I love this 3 of Cups, this card here, on this deck a whole lot. And I'm just going to switch it out for something that is a bit more seasonal. So my choice here is going to be the Desert Illuminations. So I've often said it's summery, it's rainbowy, but you know what? It's also really pumpkin-y. And so I think that works. Well, I have a personal issue that I'm upset the deck creator hasn't responded to me reaching out to be like, hey, we're both deck creators and we have the same last name, and via online genealogy, you are related to my biological father. And no response. So I have a personal issue, but this deck is very pumpkin-y in color. It is really expressive. It's diverse, and unlike a lot of diverse decks in North America, Indigenous folks from North America are highly featured in this deck. And I really like that about this deck. I think our placements were made cautiously and carefully. I love the aliens in it. There's a lot about this deck that just really does hit all my happy places. And so it's coming back out on my table for a wonderful pumpkin-y, alien, indigenous deal. And I really like the idea of having lots of my people, indigenous folks, represented in a deck while everybody is busy celebrating our genocide with Thanksgiving and Columbus Day. So there is that in there. I also decided that Fortune Queens and Next World Tarot are almost always on my table. And I decided I'm just putting them away for the color theme that I am going for. And I'm going to bring out Mystic Medleys because I think it fits the autumnal color scheme. And I also think that the creepy cartoony faces on this deck is also really appropriate for this season. And so that's why I'm bringing it out. I do find this deck is really easy, straightforward to read with. And I appreciate the faces. I'm going to appreciate bringing this deck in instead of Fortune Queens or Next World, because both of them have like really lovely, sweet, optimistic takes. Yes, I consider Next World Tarot optimistic. It's only dystopian to those who are benefiting from capital colonialism. It's really an optimistic deck. All the difficult cards have been redone. So I'm also bringing in the Zombie Oracle. I think this Oracle deck is really useful on in all kinds of readings. It just really is. I used it the other day, which was part of my decision to bring it out, was last night. I made this decision last night. I grabbed it for a long-time client, and I pulled 3 cards alongside a reading, a Lenormand reading, and it brought so much clarity to what we were seeing, and in the next steps to be taken for how things were playing out. And this is a great deck, and it definitely 100% suits spooky season. So I also had Sabarabito on my table, and I think it's staying on my table right now for spooky season. I think this is a really great deck. I think it's a good read. It's maybe not the strongest of all my decks in reads. I've been fascinated by this deck for a long time. I was so excited to get this deck. I do enjoy it. And I do find if I reach for it when I'm called to, it's the right deck. But I also don't think it's the easiest of my decks to read. If I'm going to be really honest, and that's sort of the point here, sometimes I find it really expressive, and other times I find it a little bit flat, and I'm not really sure what that is. I think it might be the kindness and gentleness of the faces. I'm not sure. It is diverse in like age and ethnicity. It's not super diverse in bodies. Might not be at all. But everybody's sort of smooth and agreeable looking, and I think that might be where I find it somewhat difficult. But for now, it's going to stay in there. So I also decided to bring out the Mystic Gnomes, because I decided that for October, I could see these as mystic wizards. They don't have to be mystic gnomes. They can totally be mystic wizards. So I am bringing out my newly christened Mystic Wizards / Mystic Gnomes deck to see if that gives me a fun wizardy feel for the season. This deck is pretty easy to read. It has keywords on it. I don't necessarily use them, but I got it with keywords for teaching others tarot. That's not to say I don't use it on my work table. Also, I do. And sometimes I'll let one keyword pop out at me. It's pretty RWS, which makes it pretty easy to read. I mean, you don't really have facial expressions because you just have noses and braids and hats and maybe beards. But I find it cute, and I like a bit of cute. And they are going to be my Mystic Wizards for this month. So this is my decks on my work table for right now. I don't switch decks out, you know, on any kind of schedule. I do it as I'm called to do it. And I happened to be called to do a pretty much near full switch out once it occurred to me that, hey, I can do something that is autumn themed. And so I'm kind of excited about that. And I hope that gives you a bit more insights on these decks, while short and brief, how I feel about actually working with these decks. Because I mostly do unboxings, and the opinion you get is like a hot takes opinion, and there's often more that follows. And, you know, it's often in that first week to first month where, you know, you break up with the deck if it was not meant to be. So, this is where you're going to see me either break up with decks or just keep them and rotate them in and out. Talk to y'all later, folks.